Switzerland, the land of pristine mountains, chocolate, and clocks, has long been celebrated for something far more profound: neutrality. For centuries, Switzerland's policy of staying above the fray made it a trusted intermediary and a haven for wealth, diplomacy, and security. But what if I told you that the Switzerland many idealize no longer exists? The death of Swiss neutrality didn't come from a battlefield, but from a boardroom. In 2014, Switzerland agreed to comply with the US Foreign Account Tax Compliance Act, also known as FATCA, ending its famed banking secrecy. This decision marked the beginning of the end for a nation that once stood resolutely independent. Today, we'll explore how a series of choices, from FATCA to sanctions, has eroded Swiss neutrality, transforming the country into something far removed from its historical self. Switzerland's neutrality wasn't an accident. It was a deliberate strategy born of geography, diplomacy, and pragmatism. Nestled in the heart of Europe, surrounded by powers perpetually at war, Switzerland carved out a niche as a neutral state, formalizing its position in the 1815 Treaty of Paris. This neutrality allowed Switzerland to avoid entanglement in both world wars, even as the continent burned around it. Neutrality wasn't just a diplomatic stance, it was an economic asset. Swiss banking secrecy, enshrined in law since 1934, made the country a safe haven for capital from all sides, whether allied or Axis. Swiss banks symbolized discretion, stability, and independence, attracting wealth from around the globe. Neutrality allowed Switzerland to thrive economically and diplomatically, hosting institutions like the Red Cross and the United Nations in Geneva, which cemented its reputation as a global arbiter. This ability to resist external pressure was a hallmark of Swiss policy. While other nations chose sides, Switzerland stood firm, prioritizing sovereignty over compliance with the demands of powerful neighbors. The turning point came in 2014 when Switzerland capitulated to FATCA, a US law requiring foreign financial institutions to report information about American account holders to the IRS. For a nation that had resisted global pressures for decades, this was a watershed moment. Why did Switzerland comply? The US wielded the threat of sanctions and exclusion from the global financial system, forcing Swiss banks into submission. The compliance ended nearly a century of banking secrecy, stripping Switzerland of one of its defining characteristics. It was a stark reminder that even the most steadfast neutral states could bend under pressure from a superpower. FATCA wasn't just about financial transparency. It symbolized the erosion of Swiss sovereignty. By prioritizing relations with the US over its own principles, Switzerland sent a clear signal. Neutrality was no longer the immovable cornerstone of its identity. This video is produced by the team at Capitalist Exploits. Headed by professional asset managers Chris McIntosh and Brad McFadden, the team hunts for deep value assets that are surprisingly contrarian despite strong fundamental cases for potential future appreciation. If you're looking to gain access and insight as to the personal investments of active hedge fund managers and in-depth reasoning as to why they've invested in the assets they're sharing, check the links in the description below. You'll get access to advice on how to allocate, organize, and think about your portfolio while joining a growing community of people thinking outside of the box. Enjoy monthly updates, open Q&As, regular newsletters, a community forum, organized portfolios, investing education videos, and more with the Capitalist Exploits Insider subscription. If you're not ready to fully take the leap, we also offer the Capitalist Exploits Insider newsletter series for $1 for the first 30 days and $35 a month thereafter. Do note, our investing strategy and philosophy can deviate a lot from the mainstream. We offer a money-back guarantee regardless, but make sure you're on board with our investing philosophy and global outlook before deciding to join us. Since FATCA, Switzerland's alignment with Western policies has only deepened. The most striking example is its response to the Russia-Ukraine war. Switzerland, long known for staying out of conflicts, supported sanctions against Russia and froze Russian assets held in Swiss banks. This move not only placed Switzerland on Russia's unfriendly countries list, but also further distanced the nation from its historically neutral stance. In previous conflicts, Switzerland would have served as a mediator, offering a platform for dialogue. Today, it's increasingly seen as another Western ally rather than an impartial actor. The shift isn't limited to diplomacy either. Militarily, Switzerland has strengthened ties with NATO, participating in joint exercises and coordinating defense policies with the West. While still officially non-aligned, these moves suggest that Switzerland is more integrated into Western geopolitical strategies than its neutral image would suggest. The erosion of neutrality has profound implications for Switzerland's global standing. Historically, Switzerland's impartiality was its strength, enabling it to mediate conflicts and attract capital from diverse sources. Today, that trust is eroding. One key consequence is the loss of economic independence. By aligning with Western sanctions, Switzerland has exposed itself to retaliation from non-Western powers. Russia, for instance, has redirected its wealth and trade flows away from Switzerland. Nations that once saw Swiss banks as neutral ground may now seek alternatives in more independent jurisdictions such as Singapore. Domestically, these shifts have also led to economic challenges. The end of banking secrecy diminished Switzerland's role as a global financial hub, forcing the nation to pivot toward compliance-heavy economic models. Higher compliance costs and stricter regulations have reduced Switzerland's competitiveness, leaving it vulnerable in an increasingly multipolar world. Switzerland's neutrality wasn't just a moral stance, it was a strategic advantage. By staying above geopolitical frays, Switzerland carved out a unique position that benefited its economy, society, and global influence. Neutrality allowed Switzerland to act as a trusted intermediary in international conflict and as a safe haven for global wealth. The current trajectory risks squandering these advantages. Without neutrality, Switzerland is just another Western-aligned nation competing in an increasingly fragmented global economy. The loss of its unique selling point makes it harder for Switzerland to differentiate itself in a world where capital flows to the most favorable jurisdictions. However, all is not lost, of course. Switzerland still retains the infrastructure and reputation built during its golden era. By recalibrating its policies to prioritize sovereignty and impartiality, it could regain its position as a truly neutral actor. For investors, the death of Swiss neutrality underscores the importance of understanding geopolitical trends and their economic implications. Switzerland, once a cornerstone of stability, now reflects a broader global shift toward polarization and fragmentation. This doesn't mean Switzerland has no value. Its banking system, while no longer secret, remains robust. Its infrastructure and quality of life are still world-class, but the erosion of neutrality makes it less unique, and investors should be cautious about over-reliance on Switzerland as a safe haven. Instead, investors should look for value in other regions that maintain independence or are emerging as alternatives to Western-dominated systems. Jurisdictions like Singapore, for example, offer a compelling mix of stability and neutrality, making them attractive for those seeking to navigate the complexities of a multipolar world. The death of Swiss neutrality is a story of slow erosion rather than sudden collapse. From the capitulation to FATCA in 2014 to its alignment with Western sanctions, Switzerland has gradually shifted away from the principles that once defined it. While these decisions may have been made under immense pressure, they represent a loss of sovereignty and a departure from a unique, impartial identity that made Switzerland a trusted global player. The world isn't black and white, it's shades of grey, and within that grey lies opportunity, not just for investors, but for nations willing to navigate the chaos strategically. At Capitalist Exploits, we specialize in identifying opportunities where others see only chaos. In a world where even bastions of neutrality like Switzerland can falter, we help investors find value in the most asymmetric places. And before we go, remember, capital goes where it's treated best. Make sure your investments do the same.